Is Kreia truly a villain? This is something I've always wondered on a grander perspective than just my own. Kreia within the Star Wars universe is one of the most unique and complex characters in the entire franchise. Not only that, she's one of the most fascinating characters in storytelling that I've ever come across. I've met so many people whose lives that have been affected by the teachings of Kreia. And while you may listen to this and go, the teachings of Kreia, it's just a video game character, to some people it is more than that. Kreia offers a worldview that can go beyond Star Wars and it can be applied in real life situations. As a child, I grew up playing Knights of the Old Republic 2. It was one of the most important games of my growing period, let's call it, and I often harken back to Kreia's words whenever I make decisions or things that may impact me on a big level. But the irony of this is that Kreia is supposedly a villain. I'll use myself as an example again. As I mentioned, I was a child when I played through Knights of the Old Republic 2 multiple times, and the words of Kreia affected me on such a huge scale. And as I played through the game, I was essentially being taught just as much as the Jedi Exile was. My worldview was being shaped by a fictional character's viewpoints, and it's honestly incredible to think that I'm not the only one. I know so many people who have been impacted by Kreia on some scale, but that's funny, isn't it? Because she's a villain. Most people in the Star Wars fandom will say they looked up to characters and were impacted by characters such as Luke Skywalker, and Leia, and Han Solo, and Obi-Wan, genuinely good characters with good hearts and good intentions, but you will be generally surprised, I think, at how many people who have played Knights of the Old Republic 2 and will say that Kreia was one of their biggest impacts. Kreia in Knights of the Old Republic 2 is essentially the mentor character. You could say she's your Obi-Wan or your Gandalf or your Dumbledore, a character that provides you with important information about the world, provides you lessons on growth and life itself, and generally helps guide you throughout the adventure. But unlike these heroes, the twist is that Kreia is a manipulator. While she has provided you the lessons, she's also used you to achieve her own goals. But at the same time, she's also used you to make you a better version of you, if that makes sense. She puts things to you that may be considered uncomfortable. She made you question things that should be considered good and asked you to look at it a little bit more closely. Through all of her manipulations, everything she has done, despite being considered bad or selfish, in the end actually were to make you stronger, and they did in the game. So what exactly was Kreia's end goal? I actually have an entire video on her complete motivation that really goes into depth about this. If you're interested, I'll put a card in the top right. But on the surface, Kreia's initial goal, and that's important, initial goal, is to destroy the Force. She believes that the Force uses people, and that usage creates war, hence the Jedi and the Sith, and all of the millions and trillions of deaths that have occurred because of that. But she learns that to destroy the Force, she has to take the risk of killing billions of Force-sensitive people who aren't strong enough to be disconnected from it. Kreia has been exiled, betrayed by almost every organization that she served, all because she has an unorthodox way of viewing the world and how she trains those beneath her. Just before Knights of the Old Republic 2, she is disillusioned. However, this changes when she meets the Jedi Exile and actually goes through the journey of KOTOR 2 with you. If we consider the canonical light side route of Knights of the Old Republic 2, eventually Kreia's entire end goal changes. Her goal becomes one of learning, one of self-strength and self-determination, and she wants to ensure that the Jedi Order grows beyond the dogmatic and narrow-minded views that they had of the past, and that they start relying on themselves more than they rely on the Force. But to do this, she pushes the Jedi Exile to her limits to ensure that she truly is the future of the Jedi. Now, the definition of villain is this: a cruelly malicious person who is involved in or devoted to wickedness or crime, scoundrel, or a character in a play, novel, or the like who constitutes an important evil agency in the plot. Does that sound like Kreia? To me, it doesn't, which is why I find it a bit irritating when Kreia is considered to be an out-and-out villain in contrast to, say, Palpatine or Sion or Nihilus. Kreia is so layered in her ideals, her beliefs, and she is always willing to change and adapt depending on what is happening around her or to her, and she doesn't view things as good and evil. She views things individually on multiple different levels that allow her to determine the morality on things. So is somebody who doesn't view good and evil as an absolute a villain? I'm pretty sure there are many people that would say yes, there is good, there is evil, and there is no in between, and that's okay. But that's the beauty of Kreia. With most villains and most heroes, you know if they're good or bad just on the basis of the story, but just like Kreia teaches you as you play the game, she's not as clear-cut. You need to really look into it on a much deeper level to truly come to a correct conclusion on what Kreia should be classified as. Now, Kreia definitely isn't a hero, just as much as I definitely don't think she's a villain, and she definitely isn't inherently good or evil, so what would you classify her as? I do believe to some degree that Kreia is the antagonist of Knights of the Old Republic 2, while also being the mentor character, but I believe fundamentally that Kreia is an anti-villain. Now, you may have heard of the term anti-hero, which is very popular nowadays. Characters such as Deadpool and Kratos, Wolverine, maybe even Shadow the Hedgehog, even Batman at times, they're all anti-heroes, but you never really hear about anti-villains, and I believe Kreia fits this. While anti-heroes are generally selfish and have questionable methods, they ultimately fight for the morally good cause of a story. An anti-villain, on the other hand, is kind of the opposite of this. An anti-villain's goals may seem heroic, they may come across as intelligent and have fascinating perspectives, but to achieve what they see to be as good end goal, they're willing to do something barbaric. In Kreia's case, this was to commit an atrocity to ensure that the Force could no longer impact the galaxy and create wars and kill billions, but to do this, she had to risk killing billions. This then changes, and eventually she teaches and guides the Jedi exile, but at the same time she's using you to fix her messes, such as the Sith Triumvirate, and of course to eventually rebuild the Jedi Order. These two end goals are heroic. Within these goals is the idea to make the universe a better place, but Kreia's actions and the way she goes about it eventually leads her into the role of a villain, or in my case, an anti-villain. I would also argue that Revan is also an anti-villain, just like his master. His methods seem barbaric, but his end goal is heroic. Even in the Old Republic expansion where he becomes the villain, I would again argue that he doesn't become a villain for the sake of villainy. He becomes an anti-villain who generally does want to protect people and wants to save the galaxy. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good villain. Villains are extremely important. Those characters that are just evil for the sake of chaos and power. But to me, the most complex and layered characters are those whose moral compasses and ideals are not absolute. Because I believe they represent humanity on a fundamental level more than straight up heroes and villains. We can't always be good. We're not always bad. Sometimes we do bad things, but for good reasons. Sometimes we do good things, but with bad intentions. The anti-villain, to me, is so much more representative of the everyday man and woman, which then allows us to connect to these characters on a unique level, and I believe that Kreia is one of the most perfect examples of this. She is a character whose goals are pure. She's a character who has incredible lessons to provide, and she has great wisdom, but she's ultimately flawed. She has a lot of failures, she does bad things, and she makes bad decisions, but she also provides those that she teaches with the ability to grow beyond her, should they choose to really try to understand. Again, this was another unscripted video where I just kind of babbled on, so forgive me if things seem a little disjointed. I'm trying to slowly get used to it, and I'd love to know what you think of this topic in general, and what you think of Kreia. Do you think she's a villain? Does my video change your thoughts? Do you think she's an anti-villain? Or maybe you think she's something else? So let me know in the comment section below, because I absolutely love reading everybody's thoughts. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the like and subscribe buttons if you want to see more and support the channel further. And also, if you're interested, come and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and join the Discord server because I would love to have you there. All links are in the description below. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.